for accounting, if you will, and again, finance is a huge part of anyone's, say, family and or livelihood. So you definitely want to make sure that you do have the right accountant, the right tax preparer, the right banker, the right financial planner, because again, this impacts your livelihood and impacts you. And if you have a family, it also impacts your family. So you don't want someone, or you shouldn't want someone that does not have your best interest at heart and treats you as more, say, of a number or a client base, if you will, versus treating you as a person.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of this incredible podcast that is changing the world with the audiences that we are interviewing for their values, the way they are changing the world with their companies, and how faith is being involved in their daily lives. Today we have with us Lavelle Bridges. How do you say your name, Lavelle?
Lavelle is correct.
And your last name?
Yes, absolutely. Oh, Bridges.
Bridges. Okay, so I said it correctly. Thank you so much, and welcome to the show, Lavelle.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
Perfect. Lavelle, for the audience, can you give me your name? Well, you gave me your name already, but can you tell me where do you live and what do you do for a living?
So I live in Arizona, and we are accountants here in the metropolitan Phoenix area.
Accountant. So you run an accounting firm?
Right, correct.
Can you?
London Bridge Group.
London. Okay, so excellent. Can you give me a little bit more detail about your business?
So yes, in a nutshell, again, we're accountants, we're income tax preparers. We set up small businesses and corporations, LLCs, not-for-profits, tax exempts, and sole proprietorships. We also teach and instruct classes and coaching regarding finances and taxes, if you will, and from a business perspective, as far as deductions and maximizing your income potential.
That's wonderful. How long have you been doing this?
This is my second day. No, I'm just kidding. So this
is that your second day?
No, this is actually our 36th year.
Wow, that's fantastic. Tell me. So are you the founder? Are you the owner of the company?
Yes, founder, owner. Yes, I am.
Owner, wonderful. You know, running a business it takes a lot of faith and courage, and most companies go bankrupt within 2 years. Tell me a little bit more about your line of thinking. What was in your mind? Why would you decide to open up a business instead of just getting a job anywhere else?
So mainly, I guess that was probably instilled with me. My father was a business owner. He owned his own business. He was in transportation, and in a nutshell, working for others has shown me more so of a desire of some of the good things to do about conducting a business or operating a business, but also some of the things that I didn't want to do, or some of the things I didn't want to present, if you will. So I tried to tailor mine to make sure it was, say, customer oriented and also customer service oriented, to the point of being able to, provide, the best possible service for customers in any setting and in any capacity as best we could.
That is fantastic. Are you an accountant yourself?
Yes.
Tell me, what was your training like? What were you thinking when you went into high school? Did you know that you wanted to be an accountant since high school, or how did you evolve into this career?
So, believe it or not, I've been preparing taxes since 1977, so actually almost 50 years of preparing income taxes and all of that. But simply put, back then, the opportunities, I guess, for males, if you will, were wood shop, metal shop, the auto mechanics industry, and that was pretty much the gist of it. And there was not a lot of, say, guys that went to typing class or were in the accounting classes and things like that. But that was what I enjoyed doing, as far as, the whole math, the accounting, even the typewriting back then. I like learning, typing and all of that versus, say, doing the wood shop and the metal shop and things of that nature, or more on the more mechanical side. I could not cut a straight line for the life of me, wood or metal. It just was not going to happen. So my projects never quite turned out the way that other people's projects turned out.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's been a long time. You mentioned that since the 70s you're doing this, right?
Correct. Yes.
What has kept you motivated all this time?
Driven to remain, or driven to be successful, but also driven to remain successful, and to be competitive, and to have a presence, and to provide, again, clients the opportunity, to know that they have a true legitimate, support system, and someone who's preparing, say, their finances, that actually cares about their finances, and not just, say, treating it as a job.
And that's one of the reasons why you're still in business, right? Because you actually care about your clients. It's not just another job that you have to complete, right?
Absolutely. And for accounting, if you will, and again, finances is a huge part of anyone's, say, family and or livelihood. So you definitely want to make sure that you do have the right accountant, the right tax preparer, the right banker, the right financial planner, because again, this impacts your livelihood and impacts you. And if you have a family, it also impacts your family. So you don't want someone, or you shouldn't want someone, that does not have your best interest at heart and treats you as more, say, of a number or a client base, if you will, versus treating you as a person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fascinating. What is the type of clients that you attract? What's your ideal client persona?
So my ideal client, believe it or not, are more of the more challenging, say, tax clients, if you will, or say more of a business, some of the business clients. We can help and support anyone. We generally target those that have, say, tax issues, or those that are having small businesses, or those that are at a place of, say, a business startup, or even, say, those that have been in business, but they just seem to pay a lot of taxes, or they pay more than what they should pay, or they don't have an accountant that assists them, say, on a monthly basis. They may see their accountant just for tax season, but that's all that they really see them for. And we try to establish a relationship where we see them more than that, and try to assist them and work with them on a more regular basis, if you will. And again, there's not a one size fits all. So David's business, a firm, may need to see us monthly, but John's business, a firm, may need to see us quarterly. And the next guy may need to see us, say, semi-annually. And the next person may want his, say, spouse or girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, to learn the accounting, and then kind of just deal with us with, say, a 12-month, say 15-month period, and we teach them, and then we're hands off, if you will, or we're no longer a part of that business, if you will, because now they're they have an accountant in-house. But the main thing is they have someone that's been taught by us, that's been coached by us, that can be best served to help and, help the business that they are part of.
That's interesting. I am a man of faith, and everything I do now I do it for the glory of Jesus Christ, who is my Lord and Savior. And when I first met you, the first thing that I saw was that sign hanging on your wall. So can you tell me a little bit more about your sign and what does it say? Because it's cut in half from the camera, and what does that mean to you?
Oh, okay. Absolutely. So basically the sign, I guess, behind me or the sign, in a nutshell, it has a message of one of the messages that Jesus says, and I'll just read it off to you. So it says, Jesus looked at them and he said, with men, these things may not be possible, but with God, all things are possible. And that's Matthew 19:26.
It's beautiful, right? And isn't it true that only with God is that all things are possible?
Absolutely.
Right? Like running a business for, 60, 70. This is incredible.
Well, exactly. And, you want to, at least I think that it's good to have, stuff like this on your wall so people know who they're dealing with, if you will. I mean, for myself, I don't want that to ever be something that's, say, hidden or not known as they, enter.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why I have this proposal behind me. I want to make sure, absolutely sure, when people see me, they see through me, and how my whole objective is to reflect the love and discipline of Jesus Christ, right?
Absolutely.
In these days. Lavelle, how do you come up to your faith? How was your personal encounter with the Lord?
Well, growing up, we went to church every Sunday, sometimes twice, 3 times on a Sunday. That was just non-negotiable. And, we were involved with the church heavily. We were either in the choir, we were, say, young deacons, we were just involved in many aspects of the church. And fortunately for myself, there was a lot of youth, a lot of kids, so we had a lot of buddies, and, we sing together. And after that, we'd go out and play sports together, or going to McDonald's as McDonald's came along and stuff like that, so, and, some of those same guys or whatever, we're still to this day, friends or family, if you will. And, it was really, say, founded, by the church, and, by being able to reach out to these people and, kind of growing up all in the same faith, and just, knowing how to be a faith-based person, a Christian, if you will, and knowing how to, say, treat people and to be treated, and, how to, live that lifestyle, if you will.
That's beautiful. And regarding your business life, I've been in business since 2005, so it's going to be 20 years this May.
Okay.
I thought I had a long track, and then here I come and I find you, and you have an even longer track. Now, in my business, my personal life, I've been bankrupt almost bankrupt three, 4 times at least. But the Lord has always allowed me to survive the adversities and thrive after that. And every time I go through a huge struggle, I get bigger and stronger after that. In your personal life, in your business, what has been the biggest problem that you have to encounter, and how did your faith allow you to pull through it?
Well, I guess I will say that the biggest challenge was, at one time, I also had a mortgage company, so I sort of put the income tax / accounting on the back burner, because mortgages paid more at that time. I mean, back in the early 2000s, late 90s, it was pretty. You can make very good money, say, doing on mortgages back then, and I put the income tax / accounting on the back burner. And of course, 2007, 2008, when we had the crash, then I had to, or I was blessed to be able to still have the accounting / income tax base. So I really had to focus on, say, building that back up, because again, it had taken a back seat. Everything that we pushed or promoted was mortgage based for the most part. We still prepared taxes, but it was not anything that we advertised or anything like that or whatever. So fortunately, like I say, having to be able to fall back on that was very beneficial, say, for me, because for example, in the mortgage industry, you could go from making, say, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a month to $2,000 to $3,000 per month, if that, over a 60 to 90 day period. And that's substantial when you have employees, payroll, mortgage, and things of that nature. And quite frankly, because it was so well back then, we just thought it would always be that way. And, a lot of us did not do well during those challenges. And, I myself, lost some assets, lost some properties. And again, as you said earlier, God still saw me through it, and we were able to adjust and minimize the sting of that money loss, if you will, and just again try to really get back focused on the tax and accounting side of it. And it just also made me, for me personally, made me realize that this was what I should be doing versus the mortgage side of it, because I really had little to no control over it. And I really had to recognize that regardless of how big, say, some of the paychecks could have been, at the end of the day, there were underwriters and all other type in the entities that could approve and or decline my loan at a moment's notice with little or no control, or little or no say so by myself.
Yeah, and sometimes we go to the shiny object, thinking it's going to be the silver bullet that will fix your life, and then in the middle of the trajectory, you realize that what you were doing is actually better, right?
So true, so very, very true. I don't regret, say, having the mortgage company or any of that. I do to. If I had to say do it over, I would have maybe gone 50-50, if you will, and not say a 90-10, 90% being the focus on mortgage side and 10% being the focus on the accounting and tax side. It would have been more of a 50-50, and I think that would have helped keep my business going a lot better, especially again when the mortgage crisis happened.
How do you went through? So this happened at the end of the night, as you said, right?
The end of, say, it was roughly around, say, 2007, 2008, when they had the housing crisis.
The housing crisis, yeah. That was a horrible period. Eh? Like the economy was the world economy. It's funny because for me that time wasn't that bad, because I run a software consulting firm. When people lay off employees, they hire people like me, where we are consultants and we just go by the project. But during COVID, I saw it really hard. Talking about another crisis, my business went from 100% down to 25% within 6 weeks, and I still have the whole payroll to pay.
Yes.
How do you go through COVID, and because it was actually in tax season too, right?
Yes.
She's speaking March, this is your season right now, tax season, right?
Right. So, once we, and I say we, as say loan officers, the mortgage company, the mortgage industry in general, we continue to tell ourselves or to tell each other that it would be better the following month, or it would be better within a couple of months, or that it was going to get better, when in reality, we were actually in that storm of, it was continuing to get worse. It was just spiraling out of control the other way. And fortunately for me, two of the processors that I had, they were married and they had their spouses to fall back on, but also they wanted to get out of the business just because of the chaotic time that was kind of happening as far as, appraisals not being accepted, certain loans that were in the pipeline, that the programs were being discontinued. And when I say discontinued, it was you were approved, say today, and tomorrow that program no longer existed. So we had to find you another program, or if that particular program, what you qualify for, was the only one that could qualify you, now we've possibly had you spend money on appraisals and maybe paying off debt and doing all these different things, spending money thinking you're going to get this house that you're no longer going to get. So that could be, not only stressful on, say, the buyers, but also stressful on the loan officers, process, everybody involved or whatever, because at the end of the day, you're paid once the loan closes. So everybody has the same common goal of closing the loan. But again, once the banks or the lenders say, well, we no longer offer this program, or we don't accept this type of appraisal anymore, or we are going to do our own appraisals because we're going to start cutting values, or, things like that. It was, very, very challenging. But again, so two of the processors had already said that they wanted to resign and do something different anyway. And the other one, fortunately for her, she was pretty, they were okay financially. So it was a difficult time, say, to release her and all of that. But, she understood and was very happy to again let it go, because it had become very, very stressful, because the loans that were closing in, say, 7 days, 10 days were now taking 45 days if it was going to close at all. And it was just challenging, going through those different dynamics or whatever between, the underwriters, the processors, the appraisers. Everyone was sort of gun shy, because if you showed the value of, let's say, a $400,000 property, the bank was going to probably cut it by 40, 50,000. So now because that was what their comfort zone was, if you will. And prior to that, there was no cutting of values, if you will. You could just, whatever the value that the appraiser said at that time, it was the accepted value, but that had changed. And also rates, as far as what they call the prime rates, it started inching up. And even though interest rates were lower, what the banks were doing is they would do what they call a prime plus assessment. So the prime may have been, say, 4%, meaning your interest rate should have been 4%, but the bank may have said prime plus 3. So your actual rate would have been 7%. And that could have possibly been an arm on an adjustable rate mortgage. So different, challenges in that regard and all of that. And then just to go back to the loan officers, because they were required to close so many loans per month, they knew that they were going to have to either resign or take a major pay cut if they were below that quota at the time. So most of those guys were willing to go on their own, anyway. And at that time, we had, I want to say it was close to 21 loan officers. So all, 21 of them resigned.
Of course.
Yeah.
Crazy. Wow. Crazy times. And praise the Lord that you're still here and you're still thriving, right?
Yes, absolutely.
What's in the picture for you, Lavelle? Like, are you thinking of retirement, or like what do you want to do 5 years from now?
I would say at some point in time, retirement for certain. I would like to continue to say teach and coach, if you will, as far as from the accounting side or whatever, and even from the business perspective, to help, say, structure or help provide information to properly structure businesses, and especially for younger people. And I say that because right now with social media and things of that nature, there's so much misinformation out there. It's very challenging, for the younger kids that are coming along, because we are in a social media age. So everything that they do they are telling someone. So for example, if David tells Lavelle and his 1,500 other, say, Facebook, Instagram friends that he's about to flip houses because of the infomercial that he saw saying how easy it was to flip houses, and then to, get involved with flipping houses and see all of the different challenges and the unforeseen things and the things that are beyond your control, and now you're not able to flip a house or not able to even purchase a house, and then you have to go back and tell those 1,500 Facebook friends that you're not going to do it. More often than none, you may think as a young person that this doesn't work and flipping houses is a scam. And it's not a scam. You were just misinformed as to how easy it was versus all that was required. So in coaching, and again, we teach a class called BYOB, Be Your Own Boss. We go over the whole business ownership components, the do's and the don'ts, the pros and the cons. And even with all of that, there's still no guarantees that your business will work, but at least you'll know going in, it's not as easy as the 10-minute TikTok video or the Instagram video or all of that stuff. Is not as easy as they've made it to seem. So you don't go out there with this misconception as far as, business being easy, or getting, say, burned and deciding that business doesn't work, because there are very successful business people out there, as you and I know, the same as there are people who have failed in multiple businesses.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You're so right. The coaching and the teaching is so important, because I believe to be a successful business owner, you need a rite of passage, if you will. And you need to have the consistency, the faith. I tell people, even if you don't believe in God, if you're a successful business owner, you have to have faith. You have to have faith in whatever you do, products or services will actually add value. And then you have to add a lot of tenacity and add a lot of long hours until you finally make it work. Because you also have to figure out your employees. You have to figure out who your clients are going to be, the marketing strategy, your profits, your accounting, right? Your tax preparation. I've seen business people that did not file income tax for 5 years just because they were falling behind. And it's like such a great liability,
Very much so. And again, as I said earlier, those are our, say, possible clients, because we can get them back on the right track to filing and getting back, on track with their tax returns, if you will. But again, because they were not giving all of the information regarding the business that they started, or heaven forbid, they didn't know that they could write off their losses, just that they have to report their profits. They, as you just said, they just don't file. They don't know the outcome, or they suspect the worst, so they don't file taxes at all. And now you got 3, 4, 5, 6 years and the taxes back up. And whereas they may not have owed taxes for their business because of their late filing, now they're getting penalties for failure to file, and things like that, which they would not have owed anything. But now, because they didn't file, they're going to be charged by the IRS. And right now is not the time that the IRS is doing what they call abatement. They're not abating a lot of penalties, if you will. The penalties and the interest, they are, they're adding up. And if it's, say, $1,000 per year and you got 3 tax returns, that's $3,000 just because you didn't file.
Yeah, no, it's insane. And that could actually bankrupt a company. So my point is, for the people that are listening, this is a business podcast, right? And if you're considering going into business, it's better that you go and get yourself trained, make sure you get the right mentors, and make sure you know what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur, and then try. And if you fail, then you try again. And if you have the entrepreneurial mindset, the spiritual capacity to become an entrepreneur, you can actually be successful. I failed on my first business in my 20s. I was able to sell it for the amount of debt that I had, so I didn't go bankrupt, but I barely made it. And then I waited another 10 years until I was ready, psychologically, spiritually, specifically spiritually, and business-wise, like intellectually, to actually do it. And then I was successful. But even then, it was very hard, right?
Well, yeah, and hopefully when even with the business that you said that you say failed with the charges for business, I guess the main thing is hopefully you at least knew what you were embarking on and knew what was required, and not given the how easy this is going to be. Because again, yeah, you may fail at your business, and there's no guarantees by any means, but at least you should know what you're getting involved with, if you will. You should know what you're embarking on and all of that. And again, back to the flipping houses, if you will, analogy that I use. There's so many guys that know nothing about, say, carpentry. They're not handymen, but they think that it's easy to flip houses, and they don't know that they're rolled in that wall, and they don't know that this carpet has to come up. They don't know that this contractor is not going to show up to put your carpet in or take your carpet out. So you're not going to close, or you're not going to be able to show your house in time because they didn't show up, and you're at the mercy of that contract, or you're having to learn more on your own because your budget now, or the money that you allotted for getting that house and flipping it, is going to be more because you have to get all of these things done. You have to get a painter because you don't paint. You have to get a carpenter because you don't lay carpet or tile. You have to get a drywall person. You have to get a whole lot of different things if you know little to nothing about flipping houses. And then after all of that, you have to put it out on a proper market. You have to price it properly. You have to have purchased it, at a price point to where you can actually make some money versus, say, breaking even or losing money. So all of those different things, just knowing what you're embarking on, or the whole sales analogy, a lot of the multi-level marketing, which are huge numbers games, if you will. If you know a lot of people, you have a lot of clients, you may be able to get them to buy whatever multi-level marketing product that you're selling or offering, and all of that. But it's a lot of numbers. It's a huge amount of numbers, especially if you're at the lower portion of that pyramid, as they call them, the pyramid schemes or whatever. And they're not necessarily schemes. They're just the people who generally get you involved in that. They don't give you all of the details, so it's misleading. But yeah, it requires a ton of people. It's a numbers game, and we have to be aware of that and know that. Look at it from the perspective of it may not be easy, or don't expect it to be easy, because then when you get the rejection, when you get the client that doesn't show up, when you get the client that commits and then they turn around and say they changed their mind because they can't do it because their rent went up, their cell phone is due, they're going to see a new movie, they're going out of town, and they can't afford to pay you because in their mind those things are priorities. Emergencies to some people can be a shoe sale. So because of that shoe sale, I can no longer purchase your product because these shoes are on sale, or these golf clubs are on sale. And this is the last time they're going on sale. So I know I committed to you to buy life insurance, but I'm not going to buy life insurance, which is important because golf clubs are on sale.
Yeah. And it happens all the time. Or what about the people that don't pay you? Like the biggest failure that I had in my business life is a client stopped paying $1 million. They just didn't pay $1 million. And that almost got me bankrupt, because that came right out of my profits. Not only profits, but right out of my costs, because I was sustaining the client for such a long time because they were paying good at the beginning, and then they started missing payments. And at the end, I gave them. It was my fault. I should have stopped it. But, they went bankrupt and I lost the money.
Wow. Yeah. And unfortunately, again,
I'm still here. I'm still in business. Right? But now you're a huge lesson, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, unfortunately, that does happen. And that happens with us somewhat. For the most part, we try to be clear, and not that it's a clear issue, but we try to be clear and just make sure that they understand what they're paying for the service and when the payment is due, which is of course at time of preparation or time that the service is provided. And it's kind of a risky game, if you will, to hope that someone pays, or that the check clears, that the credit card is not disputed, and things of that nature. It's also sort of funny the way that if you look at business from, say, a doctor or a dentist perspective, you notice when you go to see the doctor and dentist, before you are ever served, you pay up front. As soon as you walk in the door,
You pay up front. Yeah.
correct. So in most cases, that concept came about is because they don't want to give you a bad diagnosis and then you don't want to pay them.
Right.
They don't want to tell you have a cavity and then you don't want to pay them. So that's why when you walk in the door, you pay up front before they say give you some bad prognosis or say you got a cavity, we got to do a root canal, it's cancer, because some people say, hey, well, I don't want to pay you for that bad news. So you pay up front before you get the news. Or they say, by the way, I have to give you a shot. I have to give you 2 injections, So yes, they make sure the check clears before you ever go back there to see the doctor or the dentist.
That's beautiful, for sure. But it has been a beautiful interview. It's been almost 40 minutes, so I want to respect your time. I'll ask you one last question. What would be the advice that you will give somebody that wants to get into business and is thinking about it?
I would say do as much research as you can to, regarding the business that you're thinking of embarking on, and try to find someone, a mentor, an advisor, a coach, or someone that's in the business or that has been in the business that can help kind of guide and direct you as far as which, assist you in, say, making sure you don't run across the challenges or possible pitfalls that they may have run across. And, with everything, you definitely have to have God and have God in the forefront of it, put God first, I guess is probably the number one thing. Pray.
Yeah, I love your advice. Put that first and then get a mentor. Like, for example, you and I, we've been through so much. That's why I do this podcast, by the way. So if I could save a few years of an entrepreneur of hardship, why wouldn't I, right?
Yes.
Because we have been through a lot. Maybe not everything, but a lot.
Yes.
So get a mentor. Try to figure out that it's not going to remove all your risk, but at least it's going to reduce it, because you're going to figure out things that if you implement, is going
Absolutely.
to get you more successful faster, because you don't have to go around the block. It's like the Israelites, right? They went around that path for 40 years.
Yep.
It would have taken maybe 40 days to get there, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Lavelle, thank you so much for your time. May God bless you, and have a beautiful rest of the week.
You as well, David. Thank you again for having me. Okay.
Yes. Hey, cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching another episode of Anchoring Hope, where we're shining the light in these last days and hoping for the best, because the best is in the Bible. Please share this episode, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also check other social media for more content. And as always, remember, Jesus Christ loves you, and I love you too.